Well, I stayed at home and you went to wine country. Did you get wind up?
I got wind up on Saturday. I'm glad I did after watching the race on Sunday.
Yeah, it certainly didn't go the 42 or 43 way for sure, did it?
It didn't go anybody's way except the winner, I guess. It was
he was definitely the cream of the crop, wasn't he?
He deserved to win the race. He drove. Once they made a pit stop there one time, he got back in the crowd a little bit. He drove really, really hard to overcome that deal. Where he was beating everybody was he was out breaking them. His car was really handling good, so he could drive on in the corner, and that he didn't outrun them down the straightaway. He beat them going in the corners.
In the case of a lot of road racing, that's it.
Well, that's most of the road racing.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it doesn't show up that much at Sonoma than it does at Watkins Glen and stuff. It really shows up there.
When we had Marcus,
yeah,
I mean, he just outbroke everybody, and they talked about AJ outbreaking people, but your AJ finished sixth, But there was the road racing, Richard, since they don't stop for the stages and throw the caution, there's a lot more strategy. It's changed the strategy because the 8 car, he was stopping early.
Yeah.
And it paid off for him. The 9 car stayed out a long run. It didn't pay off for him.
Got lost in the
got
crowd.
Lost kind of in the draft, and then kind of felt sorry for the 34 car because they had a bad pit stop.
Yeah, right, because he was right up there. He was racing them guys.
Exactly.
I think in fact, he led a little bit because they stopped, but he worked his way up running and worked his way up to third right behind them. But after watching the race, to me, it was a very dull race.
Okay.
I went around different places in the track and watched a little bit. Then I watched a little bit of it on TV and stuff. And I don't know how exciting it was to people watching TV, but the TV made a better race out of it than what it really was, because a lot of the shots that you had on TV looked like the cars were close together. They'd be, 15, 20 yards apart, and they just run around. So, especially to begin with, everybody just got in line. Nobody passed nobody, and the way the cars are and stuff, they're so even. When the cars would get individually and wasn't in traffic, everybody run the same speed. If you can't catch nobody, and even when they'd catch people, there wasn't but a couple of places to pass on that racetrack, and to me, it was a long, dull race from my standpoint.
Yeah, and the 42 and the 43 running not that good didn't help none for sure. But I'm not sure Truex didn't just, once he got so much lead, he just run what he wanted to.
He just cooled it.
Yeah, and it's kind of, you've been through them deals too.
It's one of those deals where there's no need of being, 5 seconds ahead, because you got to stop or they have a caution. They all catch up. Yeah. So you just get out there and run the same speed as the number 2 drivers running. And but they played everything just right. And the way they stopped and stuff, they did get in the crowd because some of them didn't stop and all that. But he was,
and some of them stopped early too.
He was the best car to begin with. The 11 car just ran off and left everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, and then he cooled down, and that 19 car just kept coming, and the 5 car, he was way back there in the back. He got up front, then he got shuffled back. There was a bunch of people that run good, and once they made some pit stops and stuff, it was just a different crowd up front, and the guys that were up front had to work their way through the crowd to do it. But there wasn't that much passing, really wasn't that much racing in the race.
Well, you bring up that all the cars are the same, but they got a little bit they can work on. I say that, but the Hawkeye, it dictates so much they can do to them.
That's the way the body is shaped.
That's the way the body is. So it gets back to the shocks and the springs and the sway bars and the four-wheel suspension. But
it's funny how last week the 8 car was the class of the field.
Yeah.
This week the 19 was the class of the field. We're going to go, I guess, to Nashville.
Nashville.
And the way the races have been, there's always been one race there, the 5 car was the class of the field, and and then the next race they're just lucky to stay in the crowd. So the cars are so geared so close to each other that if somebody just hits on something and they don't really know what to hit on because the next race they're not running good.
But you bring that up, but I brought up strategy. The 8 car, he stopped early about every time. But at Nashville next week, he can't do that because if he gets caught a lap down when the caution comes out, so the road course, he could stop and not get lapped and he's okay. Yeah. But let me bring this up to you. Okay, the 19 car with Truex driving was the class of the field. Yeah. Say Kyle Busch was a seasoned driver, who is a seasoned driver. If he'd have been in that car, could he have won the race?
Sure.
But would it have been a little bit different style for the 19?
They've got a different style of driving.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Or what would Truex done in the 8 car?
Both of them adapt to their car.
That's what I'm trying to say.
So if they just changed drivers and they had to run with the same setup, in other words, the 19 driver went in the 8 car, the 8 car went in 19, and they didn't change the setup, then I don't know.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Everybody's got a feel, and if you took all the setups and put them on a piece of paper, then 2/3 of them are pretty close to each other. But all it takes is a half a pound of air in one of the tires and stuff, and you got a different car.
But these cars, we've talked before, Richard, they are so sensitive. It's unreal, and we get that by, like you said, the 11 car looked like he was just going to dominate the race, and when he got back there in the crowd, he was running so hard to keep up that he hit the wall and, of course, tore his car up, and the 22 car come from nowhere, Richard, to run third.
I know.
But he
was running. He ran 6th and 7th, 5th and 6th. He ran up there all day. He didn't run fast enough to lead the race.
To even challenge him.
But he stayed with the crowd, and then he wound up having a good day.
And then, of course, we brought up the 34 again, and they lost a lug nut on a pit stop and cost him probably maybe 2 seconds, and it just put him out of business.
Was it the 99 car that ran over his own tire? He was a pretty good car, and he ran right up front until they made that pit stop. And so, again, just one little break just takes you from the front to the rear, and you're out of the race because the cars are so easy.
And what's the last turn? Is it 11 or 9? 11. They kept changing the racetrack because they're knocking those tires in.
They kept knocking that thing in. The track got shorter.
I couldn't figure out why, and I'm not criticizing NASCAR because it's not my deal, but I was surprised they didn't throw a caution and move them back out the way they started. And then, of course, the 3 spun out. And, of course, the 12 car, he didn't run very good all day, and he stayed out there late on old tires, and they spun him out twice on the last lap. But he was trying to make something happen. So it was, like you say, maybe it was a dull race, but it was. If you look at some of the stuff, it wasn't over till it was over.
You never knew, that's for sure. All right, we'll get it all together and go to Nashville and see what happens there.
Yeah, I guess you're not singing on the Grand Ole Opry, are you?
I don't know. They hadn't called me yet.
They probably won't either.